I tell you what. I mean, mea culpa time for me on Jonathan Kuminga. You know, I was very hard on him last year. I did not like what happened in that Sacramento series, and I did not like the sound of what came from Warrior fans who are freaking out at Steve Kerr because in the middle of the playoffs, imagine this now, in the middle of the flipping playoffs and eventual 7-game series, they're getting mad at Steve Kerr because he won't stick with a, how old was he last year? Was
20.
He 20?
Just turned 21.
He won't stick with a 20-year-old who forgets to rebound most nights. What are we talking about?
Right.
Like, when a coach is giving a young player a lesson, it's almost a rule the coach is right. He's got a reason. Remember when everyone was mad at Kyle for Brandon Ayuk? How we doing now? Like, you got to do that stuff. And so as much as Kuminga got all the way to the point of an agent calling Shams for a tweet a few weeks ago, I get it. Could you have gone about it a different way? Could you have gone to him a little bit earlier? Last time Denver, should you have stuck in the game? Yes, all of those things are true. However, Steve is also going through the process of getting more out of a young player. And so when you see him go on a run like we did in late January and early February, instead of being like, yeah, Steve, see? How about, hey, Steve, nice job. Like, hello, you actually got something out of the guy. He's taking steps forward. He gets credit for that, but so does the way the Warriors staff went about it, even though everyone's always yelling at them that they can't develop young players. So I got the Warriors back on all fronts on this, but I have reached a point of scratching my head because I honestly don't, it feels like a fork in the road. And I'm not sure. Like, I'll just say that out loud. I don't know the answer in terms of which direction to pick. Jonathan Kuminga could be your 2. He could be. I think he can score enough points. You said a little bit ago he's not ready, but I think we've reached a moment of you got to decide who that person is and then just put all your chips in. And so if Jonathan's going to be your 2, let's do it. 30 minutes a night. Do it. If Andrew could be your 2, well, have fun with that roller coaster. And if Clay is still your 2, okay, fine. Then maybe go with what you're doing right now, but realize you're going to get the streakiest thing alive. 35 points one night and 3 the next.
Yeah. The answer to all 3 of those is no. And no for different reasons. Jonathan Kuminga, in my opinion, is not ready to shoulder that load offensively night in and night out. He is explosive. He's electric. He can shoot inside 15 feet off a dribble. He is unstoppable. He can elevate and dunk on you. His 3-point game is not to where you want it to be if you want him to be your 2 on a team that is a lot of pass and cut and a lot of player movement. He's not cut out to be that. Klay Thompson is declining to a level where I don't think his body allows him to be a consistent 20-plus a night guy, even off the bench. I don't think that his body is allowing him to shoot and be consistent enough, and Andrew Wiggins is one of the most perplexing should-be superstar players I've ever seen in my life. He doesn't show up and want it at the level that you saw a couple of years ago. When he showed up like that in the playoffs, they were a championship team. He was dominant at times on both ends of the floor.
Man,
so
he was great.
I think if you're really looking on who's your 2, not for this year, but for the future, that person's not inside the building. Jonathan Kuminga can be your 2 eventually, but to my eye, he's got a long way to go working on just his shot, his outside shot. His drive to the hoop, yes. His motor this year has gotten a lot better. His defense is an evolution. He's great on the ball, but off the ball, he's still learning rotations and positioning and rebounding. He's still going to get better. I don't think that he can be your 2 if you have designs on being a championship caliber team.
I think you make some really good points in there. The outside shot in today's NBA is not where it needs to be. However, the other side to this is if the word you're looking for is consistency, here's something that you don't often say. The 2 veterans in this triangle are the 2 that have this year shown the inability to be consistent. Jonathan, although only in a short spurt, we're talking about a month and a half, but for a month and a half, showed the ability to be consistent. In that run that we're talking about, where he averaged 21 a night from January 2nd to February 10th, I don't even know. Like, there's a lot of different slots that you can pick as far as when you want to start his run, but there were barely any nights where he did not at least score 20. What was the streak? The streak started on January 12th.
Yep.
With 24 in Chicago, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row.
Yep.
And 9 out of 10 where he scored at least 20 points. Were the Warriors any good during that run? Not really. Not really. I mean, that run ended in Brooklyn with a victory. They beat Memphis in there. They beat Philly without Embiid. They beat the Atlanta Hawks, and they won that game against the Bulls, outscored them that night in Chicago.
13-game run from Jan 12 to Feb 10. 13-game run. They go 8-5. He averages 23.5.
Okay.
And that's, you go 8-5. And it was against some weaker competition, but we'll throw that out for the sake of the conversation.
That's the reality of this whole thing, which, I mean, you could start to make or ask the question, are the Golden State Warriors the Dallas Cowboys or the Miami Dolphins of the NBA? Like, it's great. You can amass your record by beating all of the teams that you're supposed to beat and never, ever, hardly beating a team of any consequence. That's my question for this team right now. It'll get answered. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes I think those teams are overly criticized because you're not really a good team. Well, the definition of a good team is a team that beats the bad teams.
Right.
But to be a great team, you've got to be able to stand on a plane with the other great teams. And that's why I would never call, for example, this year's Dallas Cowboys, this year's Miami Dolphins, and so far this year's Golden State Warriors. I can't use the word great. You're good, right? You can beat all the cupcakes. You usually take care of your own, but when it comes for a big-time game, you usually don't have what's needed in order to do it. I think that's a very fair question about this team right now.
Yeah, and you look at their record against the best of the best, and they're 3-17 against teams who are pacing toward a 50-win campaign, and even in that 13-game Kuminga stretch we talked about, win over Chicago, you beat Atlanta, you also were able to beat Philly twice without Embiid, a different team. You beat Memphis, you also lost to Memphis. A little bit up and down, but the good teams, the Phoenix win is the one that stands out probably as the win of the year right now, the Currygasm, as you call it, when you beat Phoenix by 1.
I mean, you won in Boston.
Yep.
I wouldn't forget that one. That's the best record in the NBA.
You beat Boston here.
I'm sorry, here.
Yeah, you're going to Boston here this upcoming week. So there have been more bad losses than there have been good wins.
Yep.
It's an interesting question, though, about Kuminga, because over that 13-game stretch where he averages 23.5, he shot 16 times a game, and he played 33 minutes a night. And in the last 6 games, he has crested the 33-minute mark just one time, and his shot attempts are down. So is it by design? Is it fatigue for a guy playing more minutes than he's ever played before? Is it confidence? It's something definitely to ask Steve Kerr here on Wednesday, in as far as why is Jonathan Kuminga having a little bit of a regression?
Well, you brought up something that I think is worth our discussion. If you go with none of the above, you know what I mean? And maybe this is a good poll question, Lucas. You could throw this out. Who is the Warriors' number 2 of the near-term future? Let's call it the remainder of Steph's contract. Who is the number 2? Is it Clay? Is it Jonathan? Is it Andrew? Or is it none of the above?
Right.
And you pick none of the above.
I do.
Well, how do you find that person then? How do you find that person off of this roster?
Well, it would be...
Where do you go to find this person, and how do you acquire them?
You go to free agency, and that may involve clearing more space than you're going to clear with just the Chris Paul exodus. It might involve a trade of Andrew Wiggins, a guy who's making mid-20s. I know Tyrese Maxey is going to be a free agent this offseason, and he's the kind of guy who, if he's your number 2...
He's a good player.
He's a scorer. He's a pure scorer. Trae Young is a guy who is attainable. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But you're talking about who is out there.
Trae Young is right behind Jordan Poole in today's NBA. Well, no, he's behind Jordan Poole. I don't mean that they're the same player. Trae's way better than Jordan Poole. But my point is this. Players who, let's just call it the empty stat gang. Empty stat gang, which is you will never be a leader of winning basketball. We've seen that Jordan in his career was able to play winning basketball when he was tucked under the Snuggie of the big three. And quite frankly, I think Jordan was a different person. Jordan, it feels like, just got ruined by money. And I mean, the punch, I think, played a role. I think it played the role. But, what I hear now, the rumblings you hear out of Washington, which is that he is just on his own. Players do not enjoy playing with him. Like, if that's all the case, man, you're an adult. I feel for you with what happened with the punch, but my God, like, you can't use that anymore. You got your fresh start, and if you're turning off everybody there too on a team that's not even trying to win, they're not even starting you anymore. I know he finally had his season high over the weekend, but dude, empty stats and just not winning basketball. And I think Trae Young's on the list.
Yeah, both are bottom 12 in the association in just raw field goal percentage. Jordan Poole is dead last, 39.9 among qualified players. He is last. You'd be surprised to know that Klay Thompson is eighth to last, shooting 41.8. Trae Young at 42.6. Damian Lillard, 42.3, also among the bottom 12 in the association in field goal percentage.
He's not been great, but I'm going to give an acknowledgement to, like, I think this stuff is tough. And it's one of the reasons why we probably undersell what the Warriors did when they tucked Kevin Durant into an already great team. Like, that's not as easy as you would think when, like, ones need to become twos. Like, give Steph credit for that too. Steph was a championship one, and then he became a two, and then he went back to being a one. Dame Lillard has never not been the focal point of what they're doing. And now he's playing with Giannis. And you can see they're really good. They're very talented, but they're also struggling to figure it out.
Yeah.
They go through weird stretches of poor ball. They've changed coaches. That's not easy to do. So I'm sure it's affecting Dame a little bit.
For sure. And, new environment, and now he's the two, ostensibly, and still trying to do what he does, and new head coach as well, new conference, all of that and more. You're not going to love the list of free agents because some of the names are going to make your stomach turn a little bit. James Harden will be a free agent.
Well, I don't even know how the hell they get these guys. How do they get their hands on any of these
I'm just
people?
running down the list of free agents in order, descending order of average annual value salary this year. Klay Thompson's at the top of it. Tobias Harris, James Harden, Gordon Hayward's making 30. Stop me when you think there's a guy who's a 2 even who they might be able to get. DeMar DeRozan's at 35 years old.
That's a little bit of an empty stat gang.
Buddy Hield. D'Angelo Russell in an emotional homecoming.
God, no.
Markelle Fultz.
Nope.
Jonas Valanciunas is an interesting one. I'd love to see him, but again, he's not your 2.
That's not a 2, but
he's a guy who can at least provide you some of the size.
Yes.
Yeah, and the further you get down the list, the more you run into names of guys who aren't even 3s or 4s.
Isn't Paul George a free agent?
I think so. And didn't they just sign him?
Paul?
I thought he got an extension.
I
could be wrong.
So. I think that there's an opt-out there. Again, I mean, we're sitting here playing.
Right, we're playing GM.
I mean, I have no idea how the Warriors are just like, free agent. We just signed him to a max contract. He's on the team now. Like, I have no idea how that's even possible with what they've got going on.
Yeah, Paul George with a player option for next year, 48.8. He's
gonna opt out of that.
You think?
Oh yeah.
It depends on how they do.
He gonna opt out.
48.8. You think he gets more?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And he gets 5 years
at 34.
4 years.
Yeah,
whatever.
You're probably right.
Yeah. He gonna. I mean, I know it's hard for us to figure out like He's not worth that. Well, he isn't. Didn't you say Giannis is going to be making 79 pretty soon?
It's madness.
Right? So, what's 48 if somebody out there is making 79? Yeah, Paul will sign a new deal.
And Tyrese Maxey is a restricted free agent.
Oh.
So Philly can match. He's going to get big money.
He's going to get his.
He's making, $4 million this year, 4.3.
God, is that all he's making?
He's still on his rookie deal.
Jeez.
So he's, Yeah. Anyway, maybe.
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't know how. I mean, he's averaging almost 26 a night. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But I
don't
have
think
no
that
idea how the Warriors pull this off.
I don't think that the Warriors' real two is in the building. And I saw someone on the YouTube feed say, Pods is your two. Well,
no, he's not.
No, he's not. He's a great player.
Pods
he's having a tremendous rookie year. He's not even averaging 10 a game.
Pods, I see his ceiling someday as being the kind of guy who can sort of do not all the things, but a lot of the things that Draymond does. Really, really interesting utility knife type player. A guard who can go get a bunch of rebounds. Somebody who, with the way he constructs an offense, can get space for Steph Curry. It sort of looks like that's their offense now, which is Draymond and Pods running around in circles up at the top, trying to create openings for Steph Curry and get him the ball. But Pods, I think he'll get better, but I don't think he's ever going to score at the level necessary to be what we call an NBA 2.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think his ceiling is a guy who can get you, 15, 7, and 7.
Yeah.
Somebody who can be a real Swiss Army knife, and that's what he's showing early in his career. Lonnie Walker IV is a free agent. The Warrior Killer.
It was good that one night.
Sure was.
Yeah.
Bull.
It's a problem.
Bull.
How many times you want to say that?
I was going to say it one more time, but I think twice is probably good.